Hello and welcome to Question Time. I'm Omkar Goswami. Born in the UK, but at heart an Indian. My guest was the chairman of the Jardine Matheson Group in India from 1998 to 2003. He then joined the Tata Group as an executive director to oversee international acquisitions, has spent over a dozen years in India, now lives in Hong Kong advising international firms on their India strategy, and feels awfully homesick if he can't be in India once every 6 weeks. Meet Alan Rosling, Chairman, Griffin Growth Partners. Alan, thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Let's go back to the various things you've done in your career after you finished from Cambridge. And the one I'd like to start with is when you were an advisor to John Major when Major was the Prime Minister. Tell us about that.
Well, I had no political party connections or government experience. And in fact, we were on a honeymoon in Singapore when a phone call came through. Somebody saying, would you like to come for an interview at number 10? Naturally, I thought it was a joke, but I went. And 2 weeks later, I was walking through the door as an advisor. I spent 3 years working on a series of domestic policy issues, energy, transport, Scotland, as a good Englishman, I advised on Scotland. The PPP initiative, or as we used to call it, PFI, Private Finance Initiative, was originated in those days. As an ex-banker, I worked on that. So a whole range of things working for a man who was a tremendous guy to work for, John Major.
First, how you were called out of the blue? I mean, you got a first in history, and then you were a banker for a while. You were, as you said, you had nothing to do with politics. Who engineered this call?
It was somebody I knew relatively well who had been a client and a friend for some time, who was asked. So Major took over from Thatcher at the end of 1990, and they were restaffing the policy unit. They wanted somebody from industry. At the time, I was running a company making lingerie for Marks & Spencer, so I had manufacturing experience, I had banking, and they thought that I could be of help. I hope I was. It was a fascinating 3 years. And there was an India connection, because John Major was the first Prime Minister who really, I think, tried to change the relationship from the UK angle with India. So
right.
We came and we met Narasimha Rao, and I think quite a lot of the relationship that's happened between India and the UK started with that.
Let's now move on to your first formal stint. You came to India as the chairman of Jardine Matheson Group India. How did that happen? How did you manage to swing that? Again, you didn't have a Hong Kong connection.
No, I was then working as the strategy director of United Distillers, which is now Diageo. And we were trying to do a major deal in India, and what I was hoping to do was to move to India with that deal. It fell through. This was the summer of '97, so I looked for somebody else to bring me here. Remember, I'd been traveling to India, I was married to an Indian, I loved India, and I believed in the India story. And each of my employers, I would say, why can't we do something in India? The time has come. And largely I was laughed at. But I found Jardines, who did have a significant presence in India, had about 7 or 8 operating businesses, and the relationships with HDFC and Tata. So that was very effective.
Tell us about the Jardine years, because we'll spend a lot of time on the Tata years, and I want your insight on Bombay House and the Tata Group. But tell us about the Jardine years, because they were a long period. I mean, 5 years, right? 5 or 6 years, 98 to 2003.
I worked for Jardines for getting on 6 years, of which 5 was here as the country chairman for the group. Jardines is very diverse. So we had operations in retailing, the only FDI in retail before they closed the door, motor car retailing, Concord Motors, the bank, Jardine Fleming, which people tend to forget about, was then the largest foreign bank in India.
Tubar.com,